Pregnancy Sickness Support turns 20 in November 2022. We are the UK's only charity helping people affected by nausea and sickness in pregnancy, known as MVP, and the extreme form of the condition called hyperemesis gravidarum, or HG. At PSS, we provide a helpline offering information on MVP and HG. The helpline telephone number is 024 76 38 20 20. Further information on HG and our web chat service is also available at www.pregnancysicknesssupport.org.uk. To ensure no HG sufferer has to feel alone, we also offer peer support, which is delivered by our incredible network of volunteers. These volunteers have experienced the condition themselves and understand just how debilitating, not to mention lonely and isolating, HG can be. We often hear stories from sufferers that their medical support was inadequate due to lack of understanding of MVP and HG. PSS is committed to providing training for healthcare professionals to ensure no sufferer has to battle to be understood or to get the medical treatment that they so desperately need. Finally, we also participate in new research on HG in the hope that one day there will be a cure for hyperemesis gravidarum. Today, I'm talking to Sky Sports broadcaster and PSS Ambassador Michelle Owen. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me today. So Michelle, can you tell me a little bit about your HG experience?
Yeah, so I was pregnant in 2019, and just like for most people, I think with HG, when I started being sick, I thought it was normal. You know, people say, oh, it's a good sign. But when it became so extreme, you know, I remember one evening just being sick every 5-10 minutes. It felt like something wasn't right. I went to the out-of-hours doctor. He gave me some very sort of mild anti-sickness tablets that did nothing. We went down to the doctor's the next day. They gave me some more medication. When you have a bee sting, what's that called? What's the medication?
Antihistamine.
So they gave me some. That's it. They gave me a bottle of antihistamine. I remember coming home and it like knocked me out for 2 hours. Then I woke up and I was worse than ever because you do not need an antihistamine at all. While I was down there, they did like a pinprick in my finger and things. They're like, oh no, that's all fine. But you know, I've been being sick all night. I've been being sick all day, and just getting down there was the biggest battle ever. But they gave me antihistamine, thought that was that. But then that night, in the end, after going around honestly in circles, my husband managed to finally get an out-of-hours doctor to refer me to the early pregnancy unit. And I remember going in when I got there, and they did the scans and stuff, and my bladder was so enlarged because it was like completely empty, and they said, oh, you can't let it get this bad again, don't ever let it get this bad again. I still didn't know what was going on really. And they put me on a drip and gave me intravenous anti-sickness medication, which did help. And then I remember the next day feeling so much better, coming home and thinking, right, that was that, you know, just a really bad bout of pregnancy sickness. But they did put in my notes hyperemesis gravidarum. I was like, what's that? And when I googled it, that's when I found PSS. But I thought, oh, I'll be fine now. Like that was just one big sort of flare up, if you will. But obviously it wasn't. Within sort of 12 hours, probably less than that, I was being really sick again. And so that cycle of trying to get seen and get help continued for me up to 20 weeks. But it was just horrendous because no one really wanted to prescribe anything. The doctor was also nervous of prescribing any medication. Between sort of week 6 and like 13, like I just thought I was dying every day, being sick so many times a day. And if I wasn't being sick, it was just a constant nausea. When we did eventually get some medication, I had metoclopramide, cyclizine, and ondansetron. I managed to get those 3 medications when I went into hospital at 14 weeks, when I said about steroids, because I'd read about it on the PSS website. And they said they'd compromise and give me those 3 medications. So I had a alarm set to take them I was taking medication every 3 hours basically, and it still wasn't stop me being sick. But from about week 16, it kept me out of hospital. For many sufferers, it does sort of improve from sort of week 16 to 20. For some people, it goes all the way through. I was lucky in that around week 20, it did ease up to sort of being sick a few times a week. But it was honestly, like, I've just summarised something and not made it seem, I don't think, like very much there, but it was the most horrendous experience of my life. I just remember lying in bed all day, every day. My husband would try and like get me to get downstairs, but I didn't have any strength. I lost like over a stone. And I remember thinking, like, the baby hates me. What am I doing wrong? How is the baby getting anything from this? Just all, even if I had half a fruit pastel a day, I bring it back up. Even like if water touched my lips, I bring it back up. Or if I washed my mouth out with like Listerine after being sick, that would make me sick. It's just impossible. And the most frustrating thing is that no one wanted to help. The only person who listened to me and understood was a nurse at St. Michael's Hospital. And she said, we've got a hyperemesis unit here. My name's Sally. I know exactly what you're going through. Even then, I still sat for 3 hours waiting for a drip, in a side room by a lunchroom, which had awful smells of food. There was just no provisions. No one really understood. And when she said, you can come back anytime. So I remember it was the FA Cup final day. I remember being awful. And I actually got some ketone sticks for at home. My ketones, which is their stupid measure of measuring whether you're ill or not, were really bad. So I went in and I just remember them gossiping on the desk saying, oh, why is she here? Why is she back? Is she trying to fill every bed in this ward? When I've been told I could go back whenever. So yeah, it felt like no one listened at all to us, me and my husband, the whole way through. No one really understood, and it's not even on my medical record. I've looked at my medical record, it's not even there as a serious condition if I was to get pregnant again. So worst experience of my life, and I feel like if we even risk doing it again, I feel like no one would listen.
See, as if all of that isn't bad enough then, Michelle, she's so debilitating, it's so lonely, it's excruciating to then finally get given the support you need and be told words like, I'll compromise and let you you must have felt like, is it even okay to take this medication?
Yeah, I think I always felt like, oh, will this damage my baby? And I always had a massive guilt about taking medication all the way through, because no doctor ever turned around to me and said, look, you're doing this to survive. And I think the medical professionals just heaped guilt upon me. Yeah, even since having HG, like, it's left me with long-term stomach problems and bowel issues, because when you take this medication, like, you become so constipated, you don't go to the toilet for like 3 weeks. So now it's damaged my stomach and bowel, since then. And there's no aftercare, it's and there's no mental health aftercare either. So we're at the stage now where my son is going to be 3 next month, and a lot of people are having other babies again, and people turn around to us and say, oh, you're having another one, and it's just not that simple, which is heartbreaking, really.
Yeah, it affects so much of your life. It robs you of so much. It doesn't just rob you of a normal pregnancy. There's so many other things that people probably don't even consider, like planning the rest of your family, and it just robs you of so much, doesn't it? Michelle, did you ever consider a termination?
There was plenty of times where I laid there and said I couldn't go on, and my husband would say, well, what's the alternative? So for me personally, I could never have gone through with the alternative, and I would never judge someone for doing that. But as saying that now, like, I know, like, I see my son, and it is unthinkable. But I remember I had some bleeding around maybe week 6, week 7. And I remember going to the pregnancy unit for a scan and being really sick and thinking, well, maybe I'm just not cut out for this, and maybe it is for the best if that is what's happening, which was only something in the moment. And being a mum is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I would not change it for the world. But I do remember thinking at points like, I can't go on. But I know that I could never have done that personally. But, if people just listened to us and hooked us up to a drip and gave us some IV medicines, it doesn't make you better completely. You still feel absolutely awful, but it helps, like, 5-10%. And
well, the right treatment is everything. It's everything. Because
if you could turn around to me and say, you will get HG again if you were to have another baby, but you will have access to the best medical care. You can even stay at home on IV anti-sickness and rehydration and you will be able to function in terms of you'll be able to walk from your bedroom to the lounge, even though it'll be hell for 6 to 9 months. That's completely different to saying no one's going to listen to you again, and you have to fight every way when you've got no strength.
Yeah. So hard, isn't it? So you touched on it slightly at the beginning there, Michelle, but how did pregnancy sickness support help you whilst you were suffering?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'd not heard of pregnancy sickness support before, and that's why when they asked me to be an ambassador after, I was happy to help, because I've had a lot of people, a lot of males and husbands and boyfriends and partners get in touch, because obviously with my job, as many women love football like I do, there are a lot more men, and they are now aware of pregnancy sickness support because of what I went through, and I've talked about it. I found pregnancy sickness support on Google. I was then really quickly budded up with Lucy, who is my WhatsApp person. She'd just check in every few days and completely understood because she got it. I can always, like, even talking about now makes me want to be sick, but because I remember lying in bed, not able to look at my phone. But when she messaged me, and if I didn't message back, like, it was no big deal, but she was just checking in and saying, another day done, another hour done. You are getting there, even though I felt like I wasn't. And at the time, maybe I didn't fully appreciate what she was doing, but in hindsight, I do. And just having someone that did understand what I've been through was huge. And actually, I know that Lucy has gone on to have another baby since then. And it's something I've messaged her about since then as well. But she went through hell again. So yeah, she's definitely an inspiration to me in terms of what she's been through, but because she'd been through with it with her son, and she was messaging me saying, I know what you're going through, it's just sort of invaluable, really, when you feel like no one understands, when people are saying, well, just eat something, or just drink something. I honestly don't think, and I don't really like to say this because I hate it when people say this about other things. So I'm like, well, how can that be true? But you do not understand HG unless you've been through it. And even my husband doesn't fully understand it, and he was amazing. But you know, next time if someone watching this is sick or they have a bug or food poisoning, imagine living with that every day for 6 to 9 months is sheer hell.
Yeah, my husband says the same, that even though he sat and watched it, he still can't process that it happened. Michelle, how was your mental health whilst all this was going on?
Yeah, I don't think I had any sort of mental health, really, because all I was doing was lying in bed being sick or trying to get to hospital. Yeah, really low. Didn't really, life was just on hold. I was freelance, I was getting paid. I was worried about my career, I was worried about money. People probably look at me and think, oh, but you work for Sky Sports, you know, that shouldn't be an issue. Or you work for, and it wasn't Sky Sports, I was exclusively working for the time. I was working for loads of different places. So therefore I was freelance and I wasn't entitled to anything. So that was really hard. Not working, not getting money, feeling a lot of pressure to get back to work, but physically being unable to. I'm feeling like the world was just passing me by and no one even knew that I was in the bedroom just being sick all day. When I did finally say I'm pregnant at 13 weeks, you know, my colleagues sent me a big bunch of flowers, which I couldn't smell because they made me sick. Yeah, people sent things and people were really, really lovely when they found out. And actually, if maybe I would say something sooner, because I think this whole 12-week thing is rubbish anyway. Like, terrible, you know, if something terrible is going to happen, whether you say before 12 weeks or not, it doesn't actually matter. So I think that's sort of a cycle we all need to get out of. I appreciate why people don't say if they're pregnant or not before 12 weeks. And I am actually a private person when it comes to my health. So that's probably like most people, but maybe it would help all of us if we did, especially HG sufferers, because the more support you can get, the sooner the better.
Absolutely, because it's so isolating. It's just so isolating being at home in your bed all that time. And if you can speak out and say what's going on, you can connect with more people and not feel so isolated and alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your experience today. It was lovely to talk to you.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
If you or someone you know is suffering, please visit pregnancysicknesssupport.org.uk for help. You will also find information on our website on how you can get involved with volunteering or fundraising.